Wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So before we get into your good work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, we were really trying to figure this pandemic out. We were getting knee deep, and it reorganized so many of the ways that we not only lived our lives, but conducted business. How much of living through that pandemic has reverberated into what you do here in 2025?
So sorry, that question was, can you ask it just a little bit
Yeah,
differently?
so living through that time period obviously changed us. How much of the change that you went through is a part of what you do today?
Yeah, that's really the turning point of my entire life. I mean, I was post-divorce about, I would say, a year and a half during the pandemic in 2020. And I was going through a really deep spiritual awakening. And I kind of didn't understand what my purpose was. I mean, from the outside, I was living a really awesome life. I was doing social media for my family's winery and working with celebrities and influencers and traveling the world. I mean, truly from the outside, especially post-divorce, I was like in this glow-up phase. But then it kind of hit me 2021, the beginning of that year, that man, I really actually don't have it figured out. And I feel so disconnected from what I'm here to do. And although everything looks cool, I've been through so much pain. What am I going to do with all of this? It was like this yearning, this like deep knowing in my body. And that's when I found my mentor who taught me family constellation therapy. And it was actually in my very first session of this work where I said, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to help people. And it's been such a whirlwind since then.
So let's peel back the layers. Let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of fifth graders, career day. The kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
Our families go through some really painful experiences that are often unhealed and unacknowledged. And that reverberates in the family system, not only through our epigenetics, which also includes our emotions, but in energy, which is also our emotions, right? And emotions is energy in motion. And so oftentimes people will come to me and not realize that some of the blocks or these challenges that they're experiencing in their life are as a result of unhealed pain and trauma in their lineage. And, a lot of people like to work with the lineage, looking at the ancestors first and then bringing it forward into the client.
Yeah.
I learned and love to use the client as a mirror or a portal into understanding the family system because many times the fears, the thoughts, the beliefs, the actions, the choices that we make, they mirror the unhealed stuff from the family system.
That's so fascinating because that's so true. There's so many generations that came before us that we just have no idea how all of that was passed on, you know? So, what did you want to be in the fifth grade? What was your dream life?
Actually, it's so funny, but to kind of bring the story full circle on what I went through during the pandemic in 2021, when I was 13 years old, I remember sitting at my little laptop, like my first little laptop, writing a journal entry on there because I've been a writer my whole life. And it was a letter to God. And I said, God, I think I'm here to help people. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
And so I know you're not 13 in fifth grade, but it was around that very formative time where I had this inner knowing that I really wanted to help people. And I tried to do that through the fashion industry and I tried to do that through the wine industry. And ultimately, it brought me to what my soul's really here to do, which is this work.
So, speaking of family, take me back to the beginnings. And what do you think were the foundational elements or seeds that were planted into you that made you want to help people and ultimately have this kind of epiphany of saying, I need something more. I need to do something more? Because there's a lot of people that get stuck in things, but there's other people that can live the life that you were living. And they're like, it's great. I'm going to go with it. So, you obviously had to risk a lot by getting to this point. So, how did it happen?
It was really this like third moment in my life where I hit rock bottom. And I'm not sure how deep I can go with some of these words as they may be triggering for some people, but I definitely was questioning the worthiness of my life and whether or not I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And I was young. I was 27. I mean, this was 5 years ago. And I couldn't understand why I was so depressed and so anxious and I had felt so much shame in my life and I didn't understand why I had so much anxious, disorganized attachment, why dating was so difficult for me, why relationships were so difficult for me. And also just this void of emptiness that I constantly felt with everything, like nothing was ever good enough. And that's what sparked me to get this life coach, aka she's not really a life coach, but she's a family constellation therapy facilitator who has had years of work. And that's really the moment. Those were the moments that I was like, even though this looks really cool, why do I still have these lingering, empty, not enough feelings where truly the thought that was going through my mind was, if I think I was 30 at the time, if I'm 29 or 30 and life feels this way, I do not want to experience life at 50 because it only keeps getting worse.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'd rather check out now and just give up because I don't understand what I'm going through. And then, like I mentioned, in that first or second family constellation, I was like, whoa,
yeah.
like, oh my God, like all of these things, I never put the me and these unhealed traumas in the same bucket before. I now could understand myself better by understanding my family system, and it's just progressed since then.
So theoretically speaking, if you get to this point where you heal the trauma that happened, as you move forward, all you're doing is radiating that into the next generations. Is there a true point where you're like, this can be a healing point and that we can get over this and move to the next place?
In terms of the layers,
Yeah, in terms of just like getting over the collective pain of the past, acknowledging, going through whatever therapeutic measures, and then hoping that that will radiate to the next generation.
well, I say that the best measure of the success of the work you're doing is how much you're actually embodying what you want to experience. Like
Yeah,
you are the portal looking into the past, but also in what becomes embodied in the future. And epigenetically, this work or any healing work will ripple out into the family system 14 generations behind you and in front of you. That's science. That's pure science right there.
yeah.
But when you're looking at it in terms of the energetics of the family system and kind of the enmeshments and entanglements that we have emotionally with our family system, if you're able to get to a place of more secure attachment, like I don't believe we're all truly fully healed all the time. I just think we get better at navigating the spectrum of what our emotions or our wounds show up as. But I really believe like when I can embody secure attachment, compassion, understanding, and love, and even if I get to forgiveness, which is, there's no measure of success, they're just things that we are invited into, then I start to shift my internal and external experience. And then the way that I will parent my children
Yeah.
becomes different than what happened before me. And then that's what shifts everything.
Yep.
So, really, if you want to know, am I doing a good enough job and when should I move on to the next layer? Well, how are you in this experience? How have you changed and how have you shifted? And that's not to say that we should expect perfectionism because that's just not realistic, but like 80% of the time, if you're doing a great job, like that's a good sign.
So when you decided that this was going to be your life, this was going to be the new avenue, was there a client that reconfirmed it for you? Did you have a moment, like in an actual, like real time moment where you were like, yeah, this is it. This makes sense.
It was my very first client that I took on, and she signed up for coaching with me within a month. And I was like, whoa, like you really, I mean, she was just really ready to dive in. And we talk a lot about generational curses,
Mhm.
and really, generational curses are unhealed traumas that just keep repeating and repeating and repeating and are so heavy that everyone feels cursed. Like no one understands how to release this curse.
Yeah.
She came to me and said she felt there was a generational curse of anger. So for the entire time that we worked together, we were constantly just gently, slowly, as fast as her slowest part, looking at this story of anger. And at the end of our coaching together, she said to me, she never imagined she could ever have a relationship with her mom again. And she was going to go visit her mom in wherever I think it was Florida. And she was going to go stay with her for 3 days. And that was a
Wow.
huge experience for her because she wasn't even sure she ever wanted to talk to her again.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the moment where I realized this works. Like this
Yeah.
doesn't just work for me, it works for everybody. And there's also like I've got more woo-woo spiritual. Like I also work as an intuitive medium. So like I've got stories of other stuff where people's family members have come through and there's been a lot of connection in that as well. I'm not sure how much you want to dive into that, but it is very
Yeah.
interesting. But there, there's a lot of examples, especially in the beginning, of just how impactful this work is.
And I guess a part of being an intuitive medium, when do people recognize, when is it time for them to reach out to you and say, I have a feeling there's all of this unhealed trauma that I have to address? When do people get to that point? When do they know they're at that point?
When they feel interested in the work.
Okay.
And the intuitive part, it really comes through in sessions, and the mediumship, it's so interesting. Some people work differently with mediumship. For me, the constant pattern that I see when family members come through is that it's a family member that they had a challenging relationship with that is coming to make amends. And let me tell you that in the beginning of my experience, even accepting that I can do this and like really owning it and not like gaslighting myself and like getting into the religious programming of my like Catholic upbringing that like I'm wrong and this is wrong or whatever, it was like a moment of being able to just accept, like, oh, I'm now going to be the conduit between somebody and someone else's painful experience. How am I going to do that? How am I going to uphold the integrity of that while also speaking honestly and keeping it heart-centered? And, I can say after 4 years, 5 years almost, it's natural for me now, but the mediumship part is really interesting because it invites people into realizing that when our loved ones cross over, they're separated from their egos where they see their accountability. They take accountability. They're actually presented with accountability for their choices and their actions, and they can see from a higher perspective, like 30,000 feet, oh my gosh, this was the way that my choices impacted all of these people. And some souls are ready to come forward and say, I'm sorry. I did not realize what I was doing, how it affected you. And I'd like to help you in this family constellation therapy session, free yourself from what I and you are enmeshed in together. And it's this really freeing moment, but it happens with people who are truly ready, like ready to release that.
So when did you realize you had this intuitive sense about you of seeing the other side and being that in between?
I had it when I was a child. I grew up in a very Catholic household. In my family, what you don't understand, you push away because it's different.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are like that, and I don't blame my family for that. Given where they were in their lives, I probably would have done the same thing too. But I've always been very empathetic. So like I could walk into a room and I could sense things about people, and when I would talk about it, people wouldn't like it.
Right.
So I shut it down. And then it was around 2020 or 2021 when my mentor had told me, you need to wake up every single day and you have guides and angels and ancestors that want to speak to you. You're going to reawaken this part of yourself. So that paired with a course that I did with a woman named Nikki Novo, I did her soul leader course. It came back on so intensely. I actually had to like learn how to hold space for something like this because it just like the floodgates came through.
Yeah.
But really, at the end of the day, we are all capable of this. I'm not any more special than anyone else. I just happen to be born with it stronger in
Yeah.
the beginning of my life than most people. But everyone has the ability to be psychic or intuitive or connect with your loved ones who have crossed over. It's honestly just a muscle that even I have to continuously work at and
Sure.
build and learn about. So,
So who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you in your work?
oh man. Dr. Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
I call him my unofficial mentor because I've never actually worked with him, but I've studied his work so much.
Yeah.
And I just love his perspective on trauma. And I love his perspective on like ADHD and ADD and how our bodies and our brains are literally just trying to cope and
Yeah.
how they cope and how they process everything. I think it brings a very humanitarian perspective to trauma.
Yeah.
And it also softens the charge of judgment with how we carry our trauma, in my opinion.
So how do you balance all of this? It's pretty heavy to deal with being a medium and in between and dealing with families' traumas. How do you deal and how do you deal with being in that world and helping people, and you have a soul and you're a human that needs to take care of yourself? How do you separate and balance that every day?
Energetic protection and hygiene. I mean, I call in, I mean, I work really closely with Jesus, so it's not like I'm anti-religion at
Sure.
all. Work very closely with Archangel Michael and Jesus, but I have protection rituals that I do. Um, I also think that having the values that I have within my work, I have one foot very grounded in in the spiritual. So understanding spiritual components, philosophies, aspects about things, the world, I mean, just the whole gamut of it. And then also having one foot in the physical, being trauma informed, understanding personalities, understanding dynamics, understanding patterns, understanding the brain and how it works. It really keeps me grounded in being able not to get lost in one side more than the other. Um, and having a life outside of this work too. Like I love to go hiking and spend time in the mountains and cuddle with the dogs. I'm a big reader. My fiance and I, like, we stay very active. So there's a lot of things outside of that too.
So let's say you have a dream tonight and you run into that 13-year-old version of you that's typing on the computer, trying to figure out what your whole purpose on this planet is. And you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated. What would you tell her?
I would tell her that fitting in and belonging are not the same thing, and that her belonging in her family system, even if she feels like she doesn't fit in, is her intrinsic worth. No one can take her belonging from her. She has a role in the family system, whether or not other people can understand it, and to let her freak flag fly because it's going to be really fun when she gets older.
So when you look at your life being an intuitive medium, what was one of what was because I don't think like that, but that has to be mind blowing to be able to see things that we don't see and to experience levels of healing. What was one of the most profound moments that you had that just emboldened you to continue to do this and gave you more confidence?
Well, I will tell you that, ooh, getting a little emotional. Um, in August of last year, I've been doing this work for 4 years and I was kind of on this train with it. But in August of last year, my brother-in-law suddenly died in a work-related accident. He was 35, so my age. Um, it was the hardest few weeks my family and his family have ever been through. I witnessed every piece of the 2 weeks he was in a coma and his passing, and it was very scary at times how it all happened. And I've never shared this before, and I share this out of respect for my sister and his family as well. But connecting with him after he passed so damn clearly,
Yeah,
it brought me a sense of confidence and clarity that life does not end when we die at all,
yeah.
at all.
Well,
Yeah.
I've talked to people that have seen the light, they've seen the other side, and they felt so comforted, but they had work to do. They came back, obviously because we were talking. But I sense that too, and I think that should give human beings a good sense of why we're here and what we're doing, and that they're because there's always that fear. We just don't know exactly. But when you feel that comfort of what the next, because we're all not going to be here forever. So if you feel comfortable with the next step, that has to just make your whole life feel better.
It I will say that it hits you different when you go through a death personally. When you do it professionally for other people, you have this kind of knowing that it's impactful and that it's deep and whatever. But when you go through it personally and you lose someone that you love that's close in your life, suddenly or tragically or just however it is, knowing that they're still with you, even though their physical body is not there, it is an adjustment. It's an adjustment to like learning how to sense them differently and communicate with them, but they are very much energetically there as much as the physical. And when you go, like I said, when you go to the other side, yes, there's a level of accountability, but there's also this reconnection to love.
Yeah.
And you're reminded that you are loved regardless of your transgressions, of your mistakes, of your choices. There's always an opportunity to grow. And also you're reunited with your ancestors and your guides and all of these people. So it's almost like a going home of some kind. I mean, many people think that Earth is home, but I would argue Earth is some weird place I'm on this like Matrix vacation on, and I'm like sick of it and I want to go home
Right.
because of what I know to be true on the other side is just this holding, this warmth and this love. Yeah.
So, we go through these stages of grief whenever we witness it or we go through a death. When you do actually have that chance to run into the soul and spirit of someone that's left, how much does that accelerate the healing? Where does that land on the whole timeline?
Well, it's beautiful because when you're working within this energy field, time and space doesn't exist. So you can work quickly and you can
Yeah.
work efficiently, but the biggest thing that I think and believe is that you can do that when you're working from a heart-centered place. When the ego becomes too enmeshed or involved in a healing experience, it almost acts as a block. It's a protection mechanism. It's a very intelligent part of you that's coming forward and saying, oh, we're afraid that if we let go of this barrier, that something even worse is going to happen to us. And that may be the case. That's why boundaries are so important on the healing journey. But I think when we are able to be in a heart-centered place, um, and really open ourselves to what's possible, we can do a lot of healing. Within the realm of mediumship, yes, it's very comforting for the soul to be able to connect with these people and receive those healing words from through someone like me. But when you're in family constellation therapy, that's actually separate from mediumship in a sense. It's a whole other kind of modality. And we are working within an energy field to release you from entanglements that you're in with unhealed family trauma. And the shift that comes in that work, I, on average, will only see people once every 1 to 2 months because of how much you're moving in one session in 2 hours. It's very powerful.
So, of all of these things that you've accomplished, you've found your meaning in life, you've evolved to all of these places that you're at right now. Of everything you've done, what are you the proudest of?
My biggest challenge in my life has been able to embody what I teach, the understanding, the compassion, the love, and forgiveness. And I feel like there have been times where I've wanted to keep myself stuck in the anger because it really does something for me, for my ego. Um, and I'm proud of myself for being able to see my family through the lens of compassion and love and forgiveness and understanding because that has been the most freeing experience that I've had in my life. And there's definitely moments where I don't want to be. I'm human. I get stuck in these old stories, but regardless of any accomplishment that I've had in my life, which there are many things I'm proud of, it's really the growth that I've had on my journey with my family.
So, here in 2025, there's so many things that are going on, especially in America, that are creating so much stress and anxiety for people. How hopeful are you of where we are and where we're going as a race of people?
I love that you're talking about this. From my perspective, which is purely my own perspective, I can't say that I'm speaking on behalf of anyone except for myself. I think right now our world is in a very deep battle between being in love or being in fear.
Yeah.
And I think that what's happening is that a lot of things are coming to the surface to be seen in all areas of politics, the economy, our social ways of being, our relating to each other, belonging, our ability to be honest and truthful, like social media, like every aspect of our world right now, all of the nasty, gunky stuff is coming to the surface.
Yeah.
And how we handle that individually is how we will probably handle that collectively because each individual person makes up a collective. So, yeah, I definitely think that right now we're being challenged. Like, how can we stay in a high vibrational state, which I don't want that to sound spiritually bypassy, but like, how much can we stay rooted in love versus how much are we going to feed into the fear and almost keep things worse? Like, I would love to see a world where both sides of anything can find common ground and a way to move forward in a way that benefits everyone. Is that a pipe dream? Maybe some people might say that, but I do think it could be possible. I think we're just at the very beginning stages of it.
And I think one of the things that's muddling and making it confusing is this advent of AI, this artificial intelligence versus human beings with a soul. And one person told me at one point, an AI expert, I was like, "Are you worried about it?" And they said, "This is the bottom line. AI is a reflection of us as human beings. If we reflect this idea of love versus the idea of fear, we're going to imbue the rest of the generations and all of us humans that go forward with that level of confidence." So it's really the mirror against our face right now. Who are we and who do we want to be? And there's not going to be any feigning of this. There's not going to be any lies. There's going to be one truth, and it's going to be what are human beings.
Um, I know a woman named Brooke Winehurst, or sorry, Brooke Wineland, actually, and she did a TED Talk on how she's programming AI to be more compassionate and kind. She was working with Fortune 500 companies and working in Silicon Valley, basically with the top AI producers in the world, teaching AI how to be more compassionate and kind. So to that, yeah,
Yeah, we need it bad. So,
yeah.
Kat, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Mm. I believe I'm a deeply heart-centered person who is navigating how to be heart-centered in a world that doesn't always reflect that. I also think that I'm a very curious person who has a lot of questions. I've been curious since the day I came out of the womb. My dad said I was looking around the room for like hours, like who's here and what's going on.
Right.
Um, and I do believe that I'm also here to be a mother. I do believe that's a huge part of my purpose is to bring in the next generation
Yeah.
and have an intimate, impact on the family system in that way too. So, um, but I also know that I'm flawed and I'm imperfect, and my soul chose to be here on this earth to grow and evolve. And so I will constantly be doing that my whole life.
So if anyone wants to reach out, anyone has questions, they want to hire you, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
Katdao.com is my website, and my last name is Daou. It's Lebanese. It's like 95% vowels, but yeah, Kat Dao. And I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, and I also have a podcast called the Heal with Kat podcast. I put out new episodes every Tuesday, and it's all about psychosolic growth and how to be a human going on a spiritual evolutionary journey.
That has to be a lot of fun, right? To get into that podcast realm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just this is the realm of like unicorns and rainbows and fun, right? It's like
Yeah. People ask me, how's your day going when we get on the podcast? And I'm like, well, I do this for a living, so it's not terrible. It's
pretty
pretty
good.
awesome. Yeah.
Pretty good. Kat, this has been wonderful and revelatory. Thank you for being raw and honest and opening up, and best of luck with everything. Send my love to Colorado.
Thank you.
I was up in Estes Park in September, and I always love to have sojourns. My wife just told me the other day, she was like, "I have this unbelievable urge to just be in Colorado right now. I don't know what it is, but I got to be there." So there's like we were supposed to go to New Orleans. We got married in 2019, but there was a hurricane brewing, so we went to Manitou Springs, and it just kind of became the place. It was the Bob Ross Happy Accident honeymoon, and it's like ever since it's just been Colorado's been the rendezvous. So we
Oh,
love it up there for
oh,
sure.
yeah. Well, you have to let me know when you're in Colorado next.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Keep spreading the light out there. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Take care. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.